You know, many of you have probably already abandoned your okra patch, and that may be because the plants didn't do very well for you, or they're too tall and out of reach, or it may just be because you're sick of harvesting them every day. But you know, okra is one of those southern favorites that really loves hot temperatures, and that's why it does so well for us here in Oklahoma. But a lot of times people are not really pleased with their production, or the plants didn't do well, and that may be because they've planted them too early. Okra is one of those plants that we really have to be patient and come in and plant it when the temperatures warm up a little bit more. And sometimes you'll see recommendations that the soil temperature needs to be around 50 degrees, but we found that even closer to 65 and 70 degrees is when you'll have your best luck with it. Now this variety that we're standing in front of is Lee, and that's one of the space-saving varieties, and that's a new one that was introduced a few years ago from the University of Arkansas, and it really fits in with our theme. You can see it's about 3 feet high, and we planted these June 12th, so they've only been in the ground about 2.5 months, and they're doing quite well. We're getting a lot of production. But one thing I want you to see before I show you what the pods actually look like, this is an outcast, and really what's happened is the seed was probably mixed up when we got it. So we've got a different variety that's quite a bit taller, and the pods are different too. But this is a different variety, and you can see the difference in height, and it's a good contrast there. And that happens, of course, sometimes when they're packaging the seeds. Now let me show you what some of these pods look like. We've harvested several right here, and again, these are the Lee variety. Now, they have the ribs or the shoulders on them, and remember that depending on the variety determines when you should harvest them. Now this one is really too mature for us on this particular one. It's starting to get woody. A lot of the varieties, you can let them get that large before you ever harvest them, and they're still very tender and soft for you. But this is really about the stage that would be best to harvest the Lee. And again, you can get a lot of production. They do have some spines on them, but their biggest benefit, again, is the space-saving characteristics. They're very tasty, and they do have ribs, and they do quite well. Now, let me compare the one that is the outcast, and you'll see it's more rounded without the ribs or the shoulders, and that's characteristic of some of the okra varieties. This one may be one of the varieties like emerald green, which has a rounder appearance. You know, there are over 27 varieties of okra now, some with different colors, with red pods, some that are white, some that are spineless, some that can get 8, 10 feet tall. You know, the sky's the limit again, and that's what's so fun in trying to experiment with them and just see, you know, how well you can get them to perform for you. Now, this one, because it's a longer pod to start with, you can get by with letting it get longer, and it'll be a little bit tender for you versus some of the others. Now, you know, okra is open pollinated as well, and that means if you don't have any other varieties, you can save the seed and replant them next year. But if you've got more than one variety, they can cross, and you can get a little bit of variation in them. And you know, when we're talking about flowers, the okra flower really is an attractive yellow flower. It opens early in the morning, and it's not really fragrant. But one thing that's happened from India, they have actually introduced an okra called Abelmotius, which is the genus name of okra, and they've bred it for the flower, and they come in 2 varieties, a red or a pink. And those are being sold now in the United States, probably as of about 3 years, sold for their flower as an ornamental. And we've got some planted in our gardens that are doing great. We planted them in July after some of our other plants died out. They love the heat, they do great. And you'll need to cut back the little pods to keep them flowering the rest of the summer. Well, you know, whether it's hot or not, okra is one of the best things, and whether you grow it for the vegetable or the flower, I'd encourage you to try it.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.